Well, hello, Atlanta sports fans, and how the heck are you at 6:30 on this wonderful Sunday night, 2024? I believe it's, I don't know, what day is it? Is it January 28th, January 8th, 2024? This 56th edition of Bleav In Atlanta Sports. And yes, you're reading the title correctly if you're here and you're tuned in. We are asking the question tonight: can the Hawks ever be serious contenders for an NBA title? And we're talking year in and year out. But before we get there, let's just go ahead and talk about what's going on in the world. We have an AFC champion. The Kansas City Chiefs, powered by Travis and Taylor, are on their way back to the Super Bowl. Who are they going to be playing? I think they're going to be playing the 49ers. I hope they're going to be playing the 49ers. Let's make those stinky Lions wait a little bit longer to get to a Super Bowl. But seriously, if the Lions do go, God bless, congratulations to that fan base. Lord knows they've waited a very, very long time to get to that spot. So if they do, good luck. I'd like to see a Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl. Don't ask me why. But in other news as well, Arthur Smith, our former head coach, is interviewing for the offensive coordinator position with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That just came out. We also, as we speculated the other night, have landed our offensive coordinator. We did, in fact, get Zach Robinson from the Los Angeles Rams. He follows Raheem Morris over to Atlanta. It's just getting better and better, folks. Zach Robinson he was sought after. And a lot of coaches speak highly of him just as they speak highly of Raheem. So I'm more interested in that DC position. Who's going to fill that role with Nielsen going down to the Jaguars? That's going to be a fun one to watch. But stay tuned and wait. Oh, you can almost hear it. You can almost hear it. Leather's almost popping in Orlando. This past weekend was fan weekend down at the stadium. A little rainy, but if you got out, boy, what a weekend it was. There were photo ops. They had an interview with Anthopoulos on site with 680 The Fan. It was carry as many bobbleheads as you can for free out of the stadium. So much stuff going on. Some of the guys were bartending. They had a fashion show. Albies, I think, even came out wearing some of Andrew Jones's gear. And our next episode is going to be based off of the Hall of Fame, because a lot of guys came out recently in defense of Andrew Jones and said, hey, what are we doing here? Why is he not in the Hall of Fame? He's the greatest defensive center fielder ever. Well, before we get there, and I'm not saying Andrew doesn't deserve to be in. I'm just saying, can we worry about getting Dale Murphy in? We're going to go more into that, because if Andrew gets in, you got to somehow get Dale Murphy in. I don't know. I think he's out of normal chances. And he may even be out of, and I'm not sure, I can't off the top of my head remember what they call it, but there's like another committee or another way to get in, but you only have so many chances with that one too as well. So I don't even know if it's even possible. I'll look into that, but we're going to talk about it because Joe Mauer got in. And I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and say now, Joe Mauer probably had the better career. I mean, I'm sorry, Dale probably had the better career than Joe Mauer. I'm almost positive of that fact. But I digress. Let's get down to business, because tonight we're talking Hawks basketball, and the first thing we got to get into is, dear Lord, Luka Doncic. He lights us up for over 70 points. I think it was the third most all time. I know, was it Wilt? I think Wilt had 76 and 100. Kobe had 81. There's been some 60s in there, but Luka takes his place third on the list. And the question on everybody's mind, maybe right now, and if it isn't right now, you probably asked it after that game was over, did the Hawks make a mistake? Should they have taken Luka? Should they have kept that pick instead of trading and getting Trae Young? Well, we'll never know, because it happened. I like Trae. I'm glad Ice Trae is here. I sometimes wish, and I'm not saying he's like this all the time, but I sometimes wish he'd be a bit more of a vocal leader. I know they call him Ice Trae for a reason. He's very cool, very calm, very collected. So, is he vocal in the locker room? In the games I've watched and seen in person and on TV, sometimes he just doesn't look like he's there. Maybe I not, and again, that could just be me. I'm used to seeing, leaders of teams being much more vocal, much more involved. And I'm not saying there's not nights where Trey doesn't get fired up, but he stepped it up on defense. Definitely, he's definitely stepped it up on defense. He takes that charge late in the Spurs game not too long ago that was big for us, and saved that game actually for the Hawks. They won that game. But so, and again, in that game against the Mavs, they the Hawks they tried to focus on switching, but the Mavs got creative, and and to combat that, they put Trey's man into some screening actions. There were some double drags and some what have I got here? There were some double drags and some pick and rolls that really forced Trey to guard his man. Couldn't break away from him. In the fourth quarter, they start double teaming, which was little too late. And the thing that got me after the game was the players' reaction. Now, of course, anytime one of your peers, I suppose, does well, of course you're going to congratulate him or maybe even be happy for him. But I, I was stunned at the amount of smiles and laughing and handshaking going on from Hawks players. Now, I'm an old school guy. I grew up watching old school '90s basketball, and Michael Jordan wouldn't have been out there. He and Larry Bird, they probably would have given the obligatory kind of hey, handshake, quick hug or whatever, but they wouldn't have stayed out there. They wouldn't have had that. They wouldn't have stood for that. They would have been telling him, like, and the rest of the teammates, let's get off the court. They would have been livid to allow that many points to one player in a game. And the Hawks should be embarrassed. They should be ashamed because the Hawks can score. There's no doubt about that. The Hawks can score. In Quinn's offense, which they call it the half-second offense, which really means that a player's got about half a second to decide whether he wants to attack, make a shot, or move the ball. So the ball doesn't stay in a player's hands very long. Now, the one thing that I've noticed, and again, I haven't seen a lot of Hawks games because I do work two jobs. And for those of you that have been following me for a while, I started my career over in IT. So I'm at the bottom of the pay scale there. So I got to go make some supplementary income, which is what I'm trying to do here. If you guys can help me out, give me all the downloads, all the likes, the subscribes. Go download the podcast. I can get this thing monetized, and I can give you more information, more Bleav in Atlanta Sports, and more of me if that's what you want. I'm not really sure how many people in Atlanta are interested in watching me run my mouth for half an hour a few times a week, but we're going to find out. That's why we're here. But the one thing I've noticed, you would think that half-second offense would kind of thrive and rely on pace. You'd think it would be very quick. But a lot of times in the games I've gone down to State Farm, I keep wanting to call it Phillips, but it's State Farm Arena. The games I've gone down there and seen are, when they come up with a rebound or a turnover, they seem to kind of pull up and kind of pump the brakes and slow it down. I want to see them move down the court like those Magic time teams, the Lakers. They were fast, and they haven't been the only ones, but they kind of set the tone for that kind of upbeat tempo. Trey bangs out the assists, brother, like Magic. I'm telling you, he bangs them out. So I kind of want to see them, attack more that way when they come off they crash the boards, get a rebound or get a turnover, or get the ball back because it went out of bounds, whatever the case may be. When you get that ball back on the fly, let's hustle down the court. Let's not give the other guys time to set up. And speaking of that, here's the thing we know about the Hawks. They can score, but they can't defend the damn ball. They need to work on their defense big time. They've really got to up their game because what I've got here now, the Hawks themselves, they can score because 120 plus they've scored 21 times this year. 5 of those were losses. The rest of them were still kind of close. But listen to this. To that end, the Hawks have allowed 120 plus points in 29 games this year. That is not good. You got to step it up on that end of the on that end of the court, guys. We need more. And we got some big guys, man. We got some big guys that can plug up a lane. I just not sure what's going on. I mean, a lot of people said when Quinn came here that Trae Young would thrive in his offense, and we would find out if the Hawks' inability to kind of take that next step up into the upper echelon of NBA teams was because the coaching staff was not utilizing the talent to the best of its ability. and playing to these players' strengths? Or was it more of Trey kind of because he gets a lot of touches and he touches the ball a lot and he hangs on to it a lot? Not so much now in Quinn Snyder. He's getting rid of the ball, he's dishing it. But a lot of people have said that Trey could be part of the problem here in Atlanta. I don't know that for sure. He seems happy here. Seems like he wants to be here. I know there's coming up, not involving Trey, but they're talking, DeJounte Murray. I don't really put a lot of stock in any kind of trade talk. They talked about trading John Collins, God, forever. Now it did finally go down. Pretty funny that the Utah Jazz get John and we get Quinn, but I don't want to give up on Quinn yet. I mean, good Lord, the guy coached maybe half a season last year, if that. About at the halfway. No, we're not quite at the halfway point. I don't think, but we're getting close to the end of the season. We're gonna have playoff basketball soon, and that's the thing that I'm asking, because the Hawks. A lot of people don't know this. Is when I say can they be a legitimate NBA title contender? Is they make the playoffs a lot. They made the playoffs, I think, 11 seasons in a row, but we just get bounced. We're not a serious threat. And the question I'm asking you, Atlanta, is what is that going to take? Because I don't have the answer. I don't know why Atlanta is not a destination for NBA players. And I'm not advocating that, Trey gets on the phone and calls all the best players up, but, do we not have the payroll? Is the city not appealing, or is the ownership and the rest of the organization not selling it hard enough? But there's been a lot of great free agents, and you never really hear about these guys, these big time free agents, entertaining Atlanta. You never hear about Atlanta courting them, or them being in the city. And I'm not saying these guys would be the answer to our problems, but I don't. You never really heard about a James Harden or a Kevin Durant or any of those big guys when they kind of move around. And I wonder just what is it about Atlanta? And I don't know enough about our owner and his involvement in the team. Tony Wrestler is the owner of the Hawks. I know his wife's name is Jamie Gertz. She was a Hollywood actress. I don't know if she still is. Or if she's even involved in Hollywood at all. But she was in one of my favorite all-time movies, The Lost Boys. But we did hear a lot of, scuttlebutt going on in the off season in that, Tony was kind of playing bring your kid to work day, and his 27-year-old son was having a hand in some of the basketball operations, which is why Schlink moved up the ladder and Landry Fields is the GM now. And I got to tell you, when Schlink came here from Golden State, I thought, hey, we're making moves. We're getting somebody that was involved in the Golden State organization, and those guys have done a lot of winning lately. And, that doesn't seem to have translated into much. Now, I don't know what that move up the ladder meant for Schlink. Is he still, got his hands in things? Is he still behind the scenes evaluating talent, talking to his coaching staff? I don't know. Some people say that it was, actually we can see now that it is the team because we got rid of our last coach, McMillan. But the thing about that is, yes, they did have a great run with Nate that one season when Trey went up and shimmied the hell out of the Knicks and was shooting the daylights out of the ball. But one thing I like to tell people is you got to remember, we had to talk him into the job. He didn't want it. He wasn't sold on being the Hawks coach. We actually had to coerce him a little bit and kind of, we had to rub his shoulders and make him feel good. And he took the job, but I don't think his heart was ever truly in it. And there were rumblings before the season started. And we talked about it on one of our past episodes that, and none of this ever came out as fact. It was a lot of chatter because we all know in the world of sports, it's hard to find really good, engaging content to report on every day. So a lot of this stuff was maybe hearsay or somebody just trying to get you to tune in. And that's one thing you're not going to get here is if I don't have anything, of value to talk about, I'm just not going to do an episode. I'm not going to bore you with details about my life. I want to talk about sports and what's going on. But so anyway, I digress. But the rumor was that Snyder was unhappy because maybe he had been brought here under some false pretenses, and that maybe he didn't quite get everything that he thought he was getting, or there were some things that he asked for that he hasn't gotten. And I don't know. I would just love to know if I could. And I looked, I didn't see much. No, I didn't look for long because I was prepping for this show. I got my notepad here of things to talk about as far as the Hawks are concerned. But why does Tony own the Hawks? What was the point of him buying the franchise? I would like to know the answer to that question. I'm going to dig a little deeper on that because, if you got an owner, there have definitely been guys that owned sports franchises that just wanted to have them just to say they owned one. It's kind of a status symbol, among rich guys. Like, oh, you got a franchise? Yeah, I got one. So I don't know, and I don't even know what Tony Ressler does. I don't know if I should. Does that make me a bad Hawks fan or a bad Atlanta sports fan? I don't know. I think I read at one point he was some kind of media conglomerate or whatever. But again, why did he buy the Hawks? What is his connection to the Hawks? How devoted and dedicated is he to putting a championship product on the court? Because we've got talent. We've just never, and like I was saying earlier, the Kevin Durant's, the James Hardens, the LeBron James, all those big names that shuffle around. Why has it never been a destination for them? And I'm not saying we haven't had great players. Trae Young's a superstar. He's an all-star. And we've had others over time, but never that really big kind of polarizing, captivating, big time, big media player. And I don't know, this would be another question I would ask you, Atlanta fans, if you're listening and watching and you hear this. Is Atlanta considered a small market for the NBA? Are we a small market team? I would gather, yes, we are. But I don't understand how even the Braves have been classified as a small market team. And it's just funny how our Atlanta sport teams get classified as small markets when Atlanta is one of the biggest metropolises in the world. We've got, I think, arguably, I think the last time I looked, the busiest airport in the world. We're a hub for international business. There's tons of businesses here. Loads. Google has offices here. Amazon has offices here. You go downtown, you see the Microsoft building. Big things happen in Atlanta. Good Lord, we're the Hollywood of the East Coast now. Some would say even bigger than Hollywood. You can't throw a rock in this town without hitting a movie theater. I'm in a movie studio. So for me to have all that big business and to have Hollywood here and to kind of maybe have our own Hollywood here. We've got Tyler Perry here. He's a billionaire. You would think we could sell guys on that. Players that are coming in and saying, hey, we've got other things you can put your money into. There's other opportunities for you here. Besides being an NBA player, would you like to, guest star on some shows? What about life after basketball? We've got movie theater. God, I keep saying theaters. We've got movie studios, international business. So it's just funny to me. I would love to hear. And I heard my former co-host used to say side chicks and baby mamas, and I hope that's really not true. I never really asked, did he believe that, or was was that really like a thing among NBA players? Like, is that why we don't get a lot of the big talent because they got their other women down here and children? I don't know. I really don't know. But, that's the thing. Atlanta's a great town. And our other owners have, well, we really only have one other owner, which is Arthur, because the Braves are owned by Liberty Media, which is an entity. I know they have like a president that's kind of over the team. And you can go on Robinhood now and buy your own shares of the Braves. But that's the question I'm asking. What is it about Atlanta that we can't sell that top tier talent? And I know I shouldn't say this, but why not do what everybody else has done, which is assemble a team? Just get guys in here that want to win a championship. Maybe and hey, if that's not Trey's cup of tea, is kind of being a captain and a leader of this team, and he's clearly the cornerstone of the franchise right now. They want to build around Trae Young, get him pieces that make him better. He can make other guys better, players that complement his playing style. So I just wonder, has Trae done that? Has he reached out to guys and said, "Hey, how about coming here to Atlanta to play with me and let's get a title?" I would prefer that to not happen, to be honest with you. I'd rather happen organically, just kind of through free agency and the draft. And that's another thing too is the Hawks are one of those, and there's the lottery and everything, but the Hawks are one of those teams that are always just good enough to not get the top tier draft pick, to even be in that lottery. Al Horford, that's a name that comes to mind of big stars, but where's Al now? He's in Boston. He left town. So I we gotta I think we just gotta get another marquee guy, another big name, a defensive talent. Because that's what we need. You just heard me earlier. We need defense because we can shoot the daylights out of the ball. We can. I mean, guy. Every time I turn on the news, Trey's dropping 35 with 14 assists and 7 rebounds, or Jalen Johnson or Dejounte Murray's dropping 38 and hitting game-winning buzzer beaters, to send us home with a victory. So, what's the missing piece? That's what I'd like to know from you, Atlanta fans. Comment here. You can send us an email. We're at Bleav66 at Bleav66 at gmail.com. I want to check that again real quick because that does not sound right at all, guys. I do not think that is my email address. And it's BleavATL66 at gmail.com. I'm such an idiot. BleavATL66 at gmail.com. Reach out with an answer. Reach out with a question. Let me know what you'd like to hear from this here little podcast, live stream YouTube show. Because this show's for you. I do this for myself and for you, Atlanta sports fans. And the one reason I do it is because I believe we deserve a little better as far as Atlanta sports go. I'm not a big fan of Atlanta sports radio. Everyone knows that. The mainstream just doesn't do it for me. I turned it off years ago. It got old, boring, and stale. And hey, the best is yet to come from us. So that's why you tune in here. Because you're gonna see this show grow. I'm still working on the intro music and some graphics and overlays and all the fun things. But you know, that's kind of all I've got for the Hawks right now. Is they gotta get stronger on defense. Because like I said, 29 games, our opponents have scored 120 points or more. That's not good. You got and we've never the Hawks have been held under 100 points twice, but we have not held a single opponent under 100 points all season long. Hasn't happened yet. So, it's defense, it's chemistry, it's ownership, it's everything. And I've been watching the Hawks so long, and I think I said this on a prior podcast. If I did, I apologize. But I remember going to see the Hawks, and you bought the cheap seats and you sat up high, and an usher would come by and give you tickets to move down so they could fill it up for TV. I've always been a Hawks fan, and Hawks games are great. They're an absolute blast. They're a fun time. And down in the corner, in the fan section, I can't remember what section it is, but I just sat there recently for Harry Potter night, which was not Harry Potter night at all. There was one clip, and we got a scarf. But anyway, that's beside the point. I thought there was just going to be a lot more to Harry Potter night than a scarf and one clip of the players up on the big screen. But it's always a fun time. The one thing I have a problem with is watching basketball on TV these days. It is not the same sport. I know that. You know that. They don't call carrying anymore. They don't call traveling anymore. They don't call walking anymore. I say the Falcons got to get better the Falcons. Good Lord, man, I'm having a night. The Hawks, I say they need to get better and tougher on defense, but it's hard to play tough defense in the NBA these days because if you sneeze on a guy, you get a foul thrown your way. And like I said, I grew up watching hard-nosed Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, Rambis out in L.A. I mean, those guys were bruisers, boy. And man, those L.A. Celtic finals, they kicked each other's ass, man. I mean, those guys swung punches. They were boning each other, just playing tough. And that's one thing I'll say. Today's NBA player, they're soft. And I don't know if we'll ever see a return back to that brand of basketball. I wish we would. But I'm also a proponent of making the court bigger. Because you watch a game on TV, and maybe you've never been to a live NBA game. But that court is not as big as you would think. It looks a lot bigger on TV. I have said make the court wider and longer and raise the rim to maybe 11, maybe 12 feet. But, other than that, I think the referees got to start calling more penalties. And when I say penalties, I meant like I'm talking about. You can't have a guy scoop the ball underneath and take 3 steps. I mean, we literally see it happen all the time. There's a guy on YouTube that does shorts making fun of all this. I think he's on Facebook too. I don't know his name. I wish I did. I'd tell you so you can go find him. But it's laughable sometimes what the NBA has become and how soft it's gotten and how they don't call a lot of these. These are important rules to the game. It definitely changes how the game is played and the outcomes of games when these penalties aren't being called. That's all I'm going to say about that. This is not the NBA that I grew up with, and I'm not saying because look, there's Kevin Garnett, there's Kobe Bryant, there's been guys that left high school and came straight into the NBA and did well, but to me, I think there's something to be said about a sport that children can play at a professional level. Now, children are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been. We know that. And the training that's available to children these days is just stupid. It's almost borderline ridiculous. I don't know if you guys remember Marv Marinovich, but he was a strength coach, football player, and his son Todd was a quarterback machine, and Marv raised him to be so. It seems like there's more Marv Marinoviches in the world these days, and these parents have this idea in mind that they're going to mold and shape their child into a professional athlete so they can get free education and potentially millions of. I don't know how that's working with basketball in college. Do college players get NIL? Like, was NIL when they passed it? Was it just for football? Like, or is it all across the board, all college sports? I don't know. I have to look that one up. But if you know, let me know, please. Like I said, BleavATL66@gmail.com, or you can go find us on Twitter or X, whichever name you prefer, at BleavInATL66. And I still sometimes get asked the question, what does the 66 mean? That is the year the Braves and the Falcons came to Atlanta. 1966 is when Atlanta changed forever. And be it for the good or bad, we became major sports fans. We became a major sports town with 2 professional franchises. It has not always been peaches and cream, but hey, we're here, riding and dying with our teams constantly. And that's, I think, too, that's another thing. And I don't know if that has to do with whether or not players will come in, but it seems like a lot of people in Atlanta, if you ask them about the Atlanta Hawks, they could take them or leave them. They don't. I mean, of course, there are Hawks fans because every time when I go to games these days, it's full. I mean, there's people in there, even during the weekdays. The Hawks games sell, but there are a whole slew of Atlantans that just could care less. They really don't care if the Hawks packed up and left tomorrow. They would be indifferent. I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to, and it keeps getting whispered, and I don't even know if it'll happen in the next 3 to 5 years, but NHL expansion. I know it was it got hot there for a little while. I don't know if you guys remember that when all the articles were coming out and they were going to break ground on this big kind of like the Battery. It was going to be over in Alpharetta and have I think it was like 30,000 seats, 28,000, something like that. The arena for a hockey team and all kind of things to do around that area. That would be so very cool. I'm just surprised the NHL, if they have, would entertain giving Atlanta a 3rd NHL franchise, because maybe you don't know this. Before the Thrashers, we had the Atlanta Flames, who are now in Calgary. Used to be a great sports bar in Atlanta, the metro Atlanta area, called TJ's, and a guy named Craig Ecclestone owned that bar, and he used to play for the Flames back in the day. So now you can't blame Atlanta for losing the Thrashers. It was the ownership group, the Atlanta Spirit ownership group, which also used to own the Hawks. Man, what a shit show that was. Just a terrible, terrible, terrible ownership group. So much infighting and other bullshit. And, they screwed us out of a hockey team. So they're actually now, if you don't follow hockey, the Atlanta Thrashers are now the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg got a team back. So, such is life. It'd be nice to get hockey, but I think the answer to Mike, if you're asking me, can the Hawks ever become serious contenders? I think they can. I certainly think they can. We just gotta find the formula, the recipe. And my closing thoughts is Trae Young a part of that recipe? I think he is. I think he can be. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's a great basketball player. I think he's a great guy for the Hawks. I think he's a great guy for the city of Atlanta. He seems to really enjoy it here. He's raising a family here. He has 2 young children now. So, big thing, Hawks can score. And I hope maybe at the trade deadline, and hey, drop it in the comments or go visit us on social media or our email. Who would you like to have? I would like to think the Hawks are going to address those issues with defense, and maybe they come out second half, after the trade deadline. Maybe they come out and just light it up, and we get some guys and make a run, because I think we're in the 10 spot now. But again, do we pose a serious threat to make a deep playoff run? No, not with this squad. We 100% don't. So anyway, guys, in accordance with my new shorter format, I'm going to get out of here and we're going to run. But our next episode, like I said, we are going to talk Hall of Fame. We're going to talk Dale Murphy. We're going to talk Andrew Jones. We're going to talk whether or not Max Fried is going to be an Atlanta Brave after this season. I don't think he is, but only time will tell. And start warming them up. Get your arms ready, Atlanta fans. It's almost time for baseball. Work those arms. Maybe you can go down and throw a couple of sessions. You can walk on, vie for a spot for the team. But until then, Atlanta, you have a good one out there. Enjoy this warm weather, because we'll probably get slapped with some more cold soon enough. But until next time, Atlanta fans, we sure love you and we sure need you. Good night.